Salzburg pulls up for three. Boom! Knocks it down.
Curry from the corner at three. Puts it in.
For overtime, makes it Garrett. Right.
Welcome to the MVP cast from me, Mark Woods. Our guest this time is quite simply one of the UK's best players. He's a 2012 Olympian, one of our big exports to the Spanish ACB, and the current captain of the Great Britain's men's team. Greenwich's very own Dan Clark. Welcome to the MVP cast.
Hi Mark, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. First things first, we're midway through these EuroBasket pre-qualifiers. 2 wins out of 2 for Nate Ranking's new look army. Kosovo and Luxembourg put away, but I mean, neither were very pretty wins, and you were there in Manchester as I was for last Saturday to see the win over Luxembourg. A big fourth quarter performance, but you were sitting on the bench. How did you view it from there, from hearing timeouts and just seeing the action from that particular perspective?
Yeah, obviously, I think there's no such thing as a bad win, as they say. So I think we're going to be happy with that. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that we can get better at and improve in, as there always is. I mean, it's not an easy. These new FIBA, the way the FIBA have organised new competition windows is not the easiest thing to prepare for and prepare games for, especially with a new coach coming in. So, I mean, everything has its time and takes time to adjust and things like that. But I think we can still play better than we have done so far. I mean, they're not the easiest. I mean, on paper they look like easy games, but they're not the easiest games in the world because they're quite unorthodox teams and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think we should be playing a bit better, and I think we're more than capable. And I think everyone's aware that we can do that. So,
how important is it these next 2 games though to? I guess it's not even about momentum, but to build some chemistry, because in the presumption that GB can top this group, and it's very unlikely they don't now, but then you move on to the big guns in France and Germany and Montenegro, and quite definitely GB would need to play much better in that. So, I mean, given that it's a new coach, I mean, how important is that the next 10 days is used as a kind of training camp, given that the next window, it's about a 2 or 3 day preparation and then you're into games again?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. One of the more positive things I think we've had since the end of the World Cup qualifiers, which was a bit of a mess to say the least. I think one of the positive things is like the core group of players have really gelled together quite a lot, and I've noticed it in the practices and in the games and stuff. And obviously we're getting new younger guys coming in, but that just makes the transition easier for them as well if the core guys are together and in sync. It makes it a lot better. And I think Alberto did a great job, of guiding us in that direction, really, of having a great team spirit and working together and playing as a team and stuff like that. Whereas in the past, I think we tended to be a bit more individualists and stuff like that. So I mean, it was a bit different, but I think we're definitely on the right path and going in the right direction in that aspect of the game, really.
I mean, obviously, it all came together very late with Nate's appointment, Alberto resigning, the camp starting late, etc. I mean, is that the kind of thing that longer term the program that there's a need for stability, there's a need for, I guess, very solid organization if the sport and the team wants to progress, because you don't get that with the top countries.
No, exactly. Yeah, I think organisation and letting the players aware of what's going on and stuff like that, I think it's very important. I think it's all part of the preparation, and it's as important as when we get into camp. Although when we get into camp, things are a lot easier because it is just more about the basketball side of things. But I do think the preparation and organising things and making sure things are organised properly, is a big part of the success of the team, really. I think it's something that must be improved, and I'm sure will be improved, but obviously the sooner the better, really.
What would the players, if the players were drafting up a plan, and obviously you know a lot of the Spanish team, you know guys from other countries, and what's that kind of next step that not just, I guess, the men's program, but all the national team program, what's the ingredient that's really missing to take this to that top European level, or you can compare it even to USA basketball? What's the management structural change that maybe most needs to happen?
I just think we need a clear person in charge, whether it be a performance director or call it what you want, but someone who's in charge and knows the game and knows how the sport works, really. Because once you get that in pass, everything goes through him and he knows what to do, or her, as the case may be, and everything will go through him or her, and they'll be able to make decisions based on their basketball experience, I think. And I think that's very important to have someone who's got basketball experience because they know how the game works and what needs to be done and when it should be done and when it shouldn't really. So yeah, I think that's the next step I think we need to take. We just need to get one person in charge and one person running the show really from an organisational point of view and a preparation point of view.
We sort of had one of those. His name was what's his name? Mark Clark. I don't know if you've heard of him. I mean, is that kind of missed? I mean, I know he's your dad, but is that sort of structure missed where he was gelling a lot of these things together behind the scenes quite well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it is an important position, as I said before. Whether it's my dad or not, or whether it's someone else, I just think someone needs to be in that position and be able to organise and run the show and sit behind the scenes and be happy sitting behind the scenes, not being involved with the team so much, but just more of a making sure the teams are okay.
Obviously, you're right. You missed the first couple of games with a small knee injury. What's the likelihood that we see you facing the Kosovans on Saturday back in Manchester?
Yeah, well, I can assure you I'm doing everything I can to be ready for the game. Obviously, love playing for GB, love being there, love playing with the guys. So yeah, especially when you play at home, it's always nice to play at home. Obviously, with the new qualifying windows and stuff like that, we get a lot more opportunity to play at home. But up until a year or two ago, I could count the number of times we played at home on one hand, really. So yeah, it's nice. It's always nice to play at home. So yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping I'll be ready for it. But time will tell, I suppose. Time will tell.
We saw you in the bench, and obviously you were helping in the warm up, etc. But is it slightly weird in a way, because obviously you've played almost every game since 2009. Is it weird when you have that experience where you're sitting there and you're not going to play, and you're sitting watching the game during the warm ups or whatever, and it's like, all right, that's my seat.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling. I mean, during the game the other day, I was. The physio had to keep putting me back, kind of thing, to make sure I didn't fall off the seat because I was sitting on the edge of the seat. It was, it's very nerve wracking, just not being able to be out there and try and control a bit of what's going on. So yeah, I've never been a good watcher of the sport, especially when your teammates and your good friends from years ago that are playing, you want to be out there helping them really. And sitting in the other day, even though we came out with an easy win in the end, there was a couple of moments during the game where it got a bit tight and stuff. So yeah. I wouldn't recommend it, but put it that way.
You go back and obviously that very first game, 10 years ago now. I mean, how did you try to fit in a way, and how can you maybe as captain of the team now, how can you help new guys fit in at this point?
Well, yeah, I remember playing the first game at the O2, as you say, 10 years ago now. I think I was lucky. We had some great veterans on the team. Obviously Nate was there and Drew was there and people like Rob Archibald were around and people like that. So it was kind of easy to fit in because they already had their roles very established. They all knew what Coach Finch wanted from them, and I just had to follow that example. Really, I just had to follow what Coach wanted from me and do what I was asked to do. Really, do my job, as they say nowadays. Which is something that the young guys coming in now can also do. It's just about doing what the team needs. I mean, at the end of the day, national team, from my point of view, is not about who's leading the team in points, who's leading the team in. I think it's just about getting wins. That's the most important thing. It's not about leading the team in scoring, although obviously someone will have that job on the team. It's more about just making sure you do whatever you can do to help the team win. Really. I think that's what the young guys coming in have to understand, that it's not like going to play for your team where you have to prove yourself and you have to get your numbers up and stuff like that. It's more just about winning and helping the team, helping basketball in this country, and helping everything going forward. Really.
I mean, there was quite a journey over those 6 years from 2006 to the London 2012. And, it was a step-by-step process and players like yourself came on board and it grew all the way to the big stage of the Olympics. But I wonder, kind of as someone who has proven himself so invested in it, how much you maybe regret the fact that at 2012, almost half that roster exited for mostly for reasons of choice or retirement, at quite young ages in some cases comparatively. But did it feel like maybe that was a journey that wasn't quite finished?
Yeah, I do think that. Obviously, you had guys like Nate and Rob who were retiring, and I thought that their time playing the game had come to an end, which is was their decision there, obviously. make that decision whenever they want, really, as anyone else can. But yeah, I think it would have been nice to maintain that like the core group of players at 2012 together for a bit longer. Um, and I think it would have been an easier transition out of 2012. Really, I think we had a few problems transitioning out. But yeah, I mean, obviously, guys are always free to do what they want for the reasons they want, and and I no problem with any of them. I had a great time playing with them. They're great teammates, and obviously great players. That's the only reason I wanted to stay to play with them because of what we had on the court and what we had off the court, really. Apart from the fact that they've really helped basketball in this country.
What's kept you playing? I mean, personally, what's the core of why you want to keep playing for this when you could easily go and count your, I was going to say pesetas, euros, and sit back and have a longer holiday?
Yeah, I just love it. I just love playing for GB. Like for me, the proudest and most important part of my career has been playing for GB. Whether it be at the Olympics against team like Spain or whether it be against Luxembourg last Saturday, it's just for me being able to represent your country is the biggest thing. It's the best thing, and I think it's something that everyone should aspire to do, really. So that's basically what keeps me going. I mean, I just find it's very fulfilling, very enjoying. So yeah, I don't see that as why I can't find a reason why I wouldn't want to play, really.
Yeah, I know. Like my most fun moment playing basketball, and I'm lucky when you get in this job, you get to play occasionally in little things here and there. And I must admit, there was a test game ahead of EuroBasket. I think it was 2013, and that we got invited to play, and they lined two teams up, and they played the British national anthem just randomly for our team. And I think it's
Yeah,
still my favorite moment of ever playing basketball because it was that you
yeah,
just felt that emotion. It was myself, my good friend Mansour Ahmed was there as well, and it was just that emotion that came up of that was slightly unexpected. But here you were not really representing your country, but getting a tiny, tiny sense of what that's like, and it was brilliant. And I can, it still in that case surprises me sometimes that there are guys that don't necessarily buy into that quite as much.
yeah. But as I said before, guys, everyone has different views on life and different views on what they want to do with their summers or their off time and stuff like that. Which is, as I said before, everyone's like as I'm sure they respect what I do with GB, I respect what they do, off the court and on the court. So it's fair enough. It's no big deal.
Your mum played for GB, of course. Your dad coached GB. Your sister Ella played for GB as well. She's sadly now playing that, what's that called, walking basketball or netball. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But hopefully
So,
we'll be
so
coming back. Um, but as a family, obviously you're a biggie. Was it always basketball?
yeah, pretty much. Although, like, I think my parents did try and get me doing other sports when I was younger. I played a bit of rugby, stuff like that when I was younger, which was I also really enjoyed. Um, but yeah, just since I can remember, I've always like been going to dad's or mum's games. Always been shooting around. I've always had a basket at home, stuff like that. So yeah, although it wasn't ever forced upon me and Ella, but it was just always there. So it was just always the easiest thing to do. And obviously having mum playing and dad coaching, well, you did tend to pick up a few things now and again, and yeah. So so far I've got no complaints really. It's been a great life so far. And yeah, people seem to think that or may think it was forced upon us, but no, not at any point it was forced upon us. We was always free to do what we wanted to do, but we just chose and fell in love with basketball. Really, I think that's the way to put it.
What
So,
was the internal scrimmages, if I can call it like that, but like between you and Ella?
I don't think we really. There was always been a bit of competition, to put it that way, in the family. Ella's quite stubborn, quite competitive, and stuff like that. So there's always been, but because of the age difference and the size difference, there's never really been a direct matchup. But we've always tried, and I think there's always been a competitiveness behind the scenes kind of thing of what the other one's doing. The biggest matchups was me against Dad. Obviously, when I got to about 11 or 12, I was almost as big as him then. So we stopped. So we had to stop playing, obviously, because I couldn't beat me. Dad wouldn't let me beat him, so we had to stop playing about the age of 11 or 12. So yeah, that was the last type of internal scrimmage I think we had, which was going on 20 years now. So
How much is he responsible as again as father, but also a coach for what you and Ella have accomplished in terms of both your success, but also the skill set that you developed?
yeah, he's hugely responsible. I think. He's been he's been there every step of the way, basically. Especially, I mean, obviously, I moved off to Spain at a young age and stuff like that, and Nella's been off to the States and stuff like that. So he hasn't been there the whole time, but he's watched, I think, 99% of the games. He's been there whenever he can. So he's always there with the tips, and especially when we were younger, it was always about, as you mentioned before, about the skill set. It was always about the fundamentals. I mean, the amount of times I've just been, on the court with him or at home with him, just doing the basic fundamentals of the game. I think it shines through when you get to the professional level of just being a sound player, really. So yeah, I mean, it's a big, huge part, really, huge part of what me and Ned have been able to get to, really.
I mean, you had offers to go to the States. So when it came to that decision point, what made you take the route less travelled by going to Spain and Estudiantes?
It was a big decision, really. I mean, actually going to Spain at the beginning wasn't a hard decision. The hard decision came when it came to deciding whether to go to university in the States or staying on as a professional in Spain. So I don't know really how to put it, but we just thought that from a developmental point of view, in terms of developing as a player, that it would have been better in Spain. And obviously, I've got no complaints. You always wonder what it would have been like if you'd gone the other route and if the grass is green on the other side, etc. But I mean, from developing myself as a player, and also as a person in Spain, obviously, like learning another language, living in another culture, and stuff like that. I think it was a great choice. Because at the time I was going to go to the States, I think the thought process in the States, and I think obviously with the input of European players now in the NBA and the international players, it's not the case anymore. But it was, if you feel like as tall as I was and as big as I was, it was just to put you under the basket, really. And rightly so. I think Dad and Mum, who both have experience, thought it would be better to develop as a player in Spain. And as I always say, if everyone says they go to the States and go to college to go to the NBA, but I think if you're good enough, the NBA finds you anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think I took the right decision. I think I've had a great career so far, and still a few years to go, really.
If you'd gone to university, what would you have studied?
It's a good question. I've never been a great fan of studies, but yeah, I've always liked the physio or S&C type of. I don't know if that's because I've just been around them so much or not during my career doing rehab and stuff, but I've always found that very interesting. In fact, when I did come out of school in Spain, I did try and enroll myself in a physio course at a university that was sponsoring the team, but it didn't really work out. So yeah, maybe in the future when we're retired, I can start studying again, but we'll see.
You can do a degree in Spanish. That'll be easy.
Yeah, well, I know I tried to. That was the problem.
How long did it take? I mean, you and I both speak Spanish, but I mean, how long did it take you to get to that point of fluency? And what was the kind of, other than obviously chatting with teammates, did you use anything in particular? Because I heard Jurgen Klopp last week talking about watching Friends to perfect his English. What was your kind of key point?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy at the start. Obviously, going out there, I was on my own in Spain, and I think the best thing that happened to me was I got chucked in at the deep end, as in I got put into a player's residency where no one spoke English. So it was either you learned the language or you weren't communicating with everyone. And so the first 3 months it was just sign language for everything. But yeah, I think it took me about 3 months to understand everything, to understand pretty much everything, and then speaking fluently. Although some people would say, some of my Spanish friends and that would say I still don't speak properly. I think perfecting the Spanish took about a year and a half, 2 years to actually speak. Yeah, actually speak perfectly. I think it would have been quicker if I had been going to a Spanish school, but going to an English school all day and stuff. Obviously, you speak in English, so you don't really practice your Spanish that much. But yeah, I didn't really take any classes or anything. I just picked it up just speaking to friends and just living with Spanish people, basically, which I think is the best way to learn a language.
What makes that Spanish ecosystem so good at developing players? I mean, what's the thing that they're doing that probably every other country in the world, even the US, look at them with some envy? What do they do that's so good?
I think it's hard to put a finger on one thing. I do think the best thing that happens within Spanish basketball is that the Spanish Federation is their engine. You know, everything functions from within the Spanish Federation. Their national teams, their leagues, they're all given the same importance with the Spanish Federation. Obviously, then their senior national teams are their money makers, to call it one way or another. But yeah, I think that all as soon as they get these big stars, big star names, committed to playing for the national team, I think that just feeds down through the ranks into the junior system, and everybody's dying to play for them. You know, I remember when I was young, and we had a couple of guys on my team who were on the Spanish national team, and it was just like they were just desperate to get there. Like, every time there was a camp, every time there was a game, they were just they were just doing everything they could to be in the best shape and to be in the best conditions possible. I mean, it's just a sense of pride and enjoyment they have playing for the national team. But I think, to a certain extent, it's rubbed off on me and my willingness and my enjoyment I get from playing for the national team. I just think it's great the way they look at that. And obviously, I think the domestic league obviously is one of the best in the world. I mean, I think behind the EuroLeague and the NBA, it's probably the best league in the world. And I think that allows teams to develop players better. It gives something for players to aspire to. So yeah, I think that's their main keys really, is that especially the league and the guys and the younger players, junior players coming through the ranks, able to aspire to be in the next, I don't know, Rudy Fernandez or Ricky Rubio or Sergio Rodriguez. I think being able to see them play at an elite level inspires them to be great as well.
I think what's interesting, I remember having a conversation with the basketball president of FC Barcelona a few years ago, and as he explained it, it's very much each of the Spain is divided into regions, and every region has their development program, and then you have to be competitive to get invited from that into the central program, and the clubs, although obviously the big clubs have their own self-interest, they also buy into that. I mean, they see the developmental benefits of their players being in this national system, which supports them and then sends their players back better, which I think, for other countries in the world, there seems to be a certain an altruism or a selflessness about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think at the end of the day, everyone in Spain is for the development of players. I mean, when I was at Estudiantes, it wasn't so important the result. It was how we were training, what we were doing, how we were evolving as players more than the result of the weekend. Really, I mean, if we went, they'd give us objectives, they'd give us certain things that we'd aim for those weekends and in those games, and the idea was not to win. It was to do those things more than win. Especially at a younger age, I think it is very important that you evolve as a player more than winning. Although it is very important to learn how to win. And I think that's the other thing in the UK that we're not very good at. We're not very good at learning how to win at a young age. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things. As I said before, it's not easy to put your finger on one point of why they're so great, which I think is why they're great. There's so many aspects to the greatness of producing players, and it's not just one generation; it's generation after generation after generation. So yeah, it's a great example to follow, and hopefully we can pick some stuff up from it.
Given that almost every British player who's playing is earning their salary in Europe, do you think it helps to, I guess, succeed in the long term and have a longer term successful career in Europe? Is it better to have been through a European system in terms of your development than have gone to US colleges?
I think that really depends on the player, really. I mean, because you see, for example, you have players who've been to college in the States who have great careers in Europe, but you also see players who've come through the system in Europe and also have great careers. So, I mean, it's a tough one to explain, really. I just think in European basketball, there's a lot of luck in terms of the team you end up at, the coach you get, the style of play that team has, and stuff like that. And if you walk into a good situation where it fits you, then it's all the good for you, and you should make the most of it. But there's some situations you walk into where either the new coach doesn't like you or stuff like that. It's very random in Europe in that sense, and you do need a bit of luck in terms of falling into the right place at the right time, I think.
I mean, you've only had, almost all your career has been in the Spanish leagues. I mean, you had 6 months with Skopje, but apart from that, it's been Spain all the way and Fuenlabrada last season. Is there, I guess, if you're in the league and the league develops you, is there a certain bias towards players who have come through that system and stuck to that system?
Well, I mean, one of the big fights like the Player Association and the league are having at the moment is the amount of Spanish produced players that should be on every roster. So I wouldn't say there's a bias, but obviously if you are a Spanish produced player, it does help you in terms of getting a contract. But I think if it was up to the league, I think they just get the best players available, really, instead of just having to, not settle, but have certain players on their team and be forced to having certain players on the team, whether it be Spanish or another from another country. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I think obviously the big teams, like Madrid, Barca, and that just sign whoever they want, really, because it's not a problem for them. They just live off their football teams, and everything's good. But for the smaller teams, I do think it is important for it to produce players through your junior system, because it just saves you a lot of money at the end of the day. Instead of trying to have to bring someone in from a college in the States, it's different. It's a different animal, I think. European basketball in terms of signing and not signing and where you end up and stuff like that. It's a bit strange at the moment.
Does it feel a bit like the football's Premier League in the sense that you always look there? They've got a big six and they've probably got a big two within that at the moment. I mean, it's the ACB's kind of like that. You've got Real Madrid, Barcelona, who you expect are going to win almost every year. Yes, sometimes there's maybe three other clubs that play in EuroLeague on a rotational basis that sometimes will win the Copa del Rey or might win a playoffs. But does it feel like sometimes if you're a team that's towards the bottom end of it, that you're really pushing uphill?
Yeah, I think there is a cut-off point in the league where you are really either fighting just to stay in the league, or you're fighting for those last two playoff positions. Really, those positions where you get a European competition next season and stuff like that. But yeah, there is definitely a big difference between the top 5, 6 teams compared to the rest of the league. So yeah, I mean, it is very similar to the Premiership. I think it's also similar to the Premiership in terms of the level of competitiveness. There is always a lot of upsets during the year. It's not like, I don't know, like in Greece or a place like that where Olympiacos and Panathinaikos just walk out with every game. Madrid and Barcelona lose quite a few games every year to get teams that they theoretically shouldn't lose games to, which is similar to what happens in the Premiership. So it's a fun league to be in. It's interesting, and there's always stuff going on. So it's good.
Just a few weeks away from training camp. You're a free agent. What can you tell us about processes and talks and agent maneuvers?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it is a bit strange at the moment, the European market. There are a lot more countries are allowing a lot more Americans to come over, who are to some extent just breaking the market open, as they come out of college and they're willing to take anything, sorry, in terms of money and stuff like that. So if a team's offering you a certain amount and they come in and accept half of the amount you're asking for, then obviously that team's going to take them on board. So it's a bit of a battle at the moment. But yeah, I mean, when I get the right situation and the right conditions for myself, then I'll be more than happy to join a team. So yeah, it's just playing the waiting game at the moment and see what comes up.
But happy if the right offer came to move outside Spain again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite open to that. Obviously, it have to be the right situation on the right team and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm more than happy to move outside of Spain. I think the basketball world is bigger than the Spanish league, obviously, and I think there's some great experiences to have outside of the Spanish league. So yeah, I'm more than happy to move abroad.
You could get another language. Your Macedonian must be all right.
Well, I did try Macedonian. They didn't go very well. It was a bit hard, to be fair. And then I found out after about a month of trying to learn it that like the Serbian, or I thought they was all the same language, the Serbian and the Croatian, but apparently not. Whereas Macedonian people from Serbia won't understand Macedonian people and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a bit interesting, to say the least.
I mean, when you come back, and obviously you've been away, so I know you don't have the day-to-day knowledge of the system here, but what do you think are the big things that, I'm not saying necessarily that we're doing wrong in this country, but what's the biggest things that maybe we could take from Spain if we were drawing up that long-term vision for developing the sport, developing players? What's the biggest things that maybe that in the UK we need to change?
I think you've just hit the nail on the head saying developing players. I think although there's obviously, I think this academy system that's been put in place over the last few years is a great step in the right direction. I do think the most important thing for those academies still has to be developing players, not just winning for that academy and justifying your job by the number of victories you get with a junior team. I think it is important that you develop players, and I think that the success of those academies must be orientated towards the amount of players they produce, really, whether it be for the national teams or the amount of players they're able to send on scholarships to the States or send to European teams. I think that's how the success of those academies should be seen. Because obviously, I mean, winning, obviously it's great to win and everyone loves winning and stuff, but I think it'll be greater beneficial for the sport, so the sport of basketball in general, if we had more and more players competing at a higher and higher level. And I think that comes by developing players and teaching players the right way to play the game. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to, as I said before with the Spanish Federation, it's hard to just say one thing or two things that they do really well and we do badly, but it's just a number of things that come together and stuff like that. But I do think, the most important things, as I said before, is for developing players is I think is the domestic league. I think that needs to improve. Just for the simple fact, as I said before, of allowing players to aspire to something. I would love in 10 years to hear a 15-year-old guy aspire, say like, oh yeah, I want to be like the guy at London Lions, or I want to be like the guy at Leicester Riders and stuff like that, or aspire to play for those teams. It would be, I think that would be a great breakthrough. But at the moment, I don't think if you asked any guys on the junior national teams, I don't think any of them are aspiring to play in the BBL, which is a real shame. And then also the national teams. I think national teams are the engine to any domestic basketball. And FIBA recognises that way, and I think that's something that we have to move on quickly. And make sure that the national teams are important for everybody, and getting as many kids, getting our best kids and best players playing for those national teams.
And when you as a team, and obviously you were the person that made the statement last year after the World Cup campaign, you come out collectively and made a statement about how the sport was being run. And there was one interesting thing I think that was in that said, I'll quote you here: a common vision of the sport in this country was agreed in 2012, but why are the home countries not helping to realise this vision? When you look, I guess, and this isn't necessarily targeting anyone in particular, but when you look at the people involved at the top, and there isn't, I guess, there's no one really there like there is in Spain with Jorge Garbajosa, who's the president of the Spanish Federation, but there isn't a sort of player with a long history of basketball who's retired and moved into that role. I mean, do you think over the next 10 years, when you've got a sort of generation of players who have had the very top level experience and played in big leagues, whether it's NBA or ACB, I mean, do you think that's something that strategically now needs to be looked at, or how you bring that group, and you'll be one of them when you retire as well, but bring that group into positions of influence and prediction, where they can actually change things and put a vision into place?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to have those people involved. I think they should be involved, and they've got the world of knowledge, as you said before, that they've been involved at the highest level, whether it be the NBA, whether it be the EuroLeague, whether it be in Spain or any other great league around Europe. They've got the knowledge of how elite basketball works, and that's what we're aiming for in the UK is elite basketball, both on and off the court. And I think to have that, you have to have someone who's had the experience of having been around elite basketball. And I don't think at the moment we have that in place. And I think it's a very important appointment I think needs to be made.
Because we see it in Spain and France that they take players when they retire. It's not quite offering you a job as soon as you step away, but it is looking at talents and where they can be reutilized in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone, basketball is not a 9-to-5 job, but it does give you a certain experience that not many people have. And I think in certain cases, whether it be working with the federation or certain academies or stuff like that, I think that skill set is invaluable in certain aspects, and I think that's something that's definitely needs to be assessed and definitely needs to be looked at, and hopefully it will, and hopefully some of these guys have had all this invaluable experience and invaluable knowledge about the game and how it works and what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. They get asked their opinion and get to have some type of input into improving the game, which is at the end of the day, it's what even as you said before with that statement, the idea of that statement wasn't to have a go at anyone. It was just really to make sure people are aware of what's going on and trying to get some type of change for the better. It wasn't to harm. It wasn't to do anything else. It's just always trying to aim to get the sport better in this country. Really, that's what I think we have to aim to do every day.
I mean, there was talk recently at board level about the role models, and I discussed this with Miles Hess in a previous edition. But it was that implication that the men's team, by dint of not achieving what the women have done and what amazing summer that they've had, but that the men weren't somehow role models for young players. I mean, you hear that as someone who's tried to put back into the game and has had camps here, etc. I mean, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, it was very disappointing to hear stuff like that, especially coming from within the board of your own federation. It's not. Firstly, it's not correct, and I think an apology is due to the players from that point of view. Well, it's just not correct. There's no way you can tell me that a guy who's sacrificed so many things, and there's so many examples just on this national team now, sacrificed so many things, left the family early to try and succeed at the goal they've put in place for themselves and succeed at it, and then be able to reach a professional and be able to reach a job. And that's what so many kids who play basketball in this country aspire to. So I don't know how that doesn't make them role models, coming from backgrounds that might not have been the easiest situation to come out of, but they've still come out of it and made something of their lives and done really well. They're a great example. I've got role models on my own team. I look up to players on my team and sometimes wish I could be like them in certain aspects of life. So I think it's very unfair to say that we're not role models, especially when especially the guys here on this national team. Obviously, with the conditions that have been put in place recently, haven't been ideal, but they've still put there's never been a doubt about them playing for the national team, and they've always wanted to be here. And I think that's another example of being a role model is, dealing with adversity when it hits you in the face, really, and just keep on going forward. And I think we've got a great group of guys now that that always aspire to do the right thing and do the right thing for their country. So I do think an apology to the players on this team is due from that board. But yeah, that's all I want to say about it, really.
I mean, you said role models in the team and players you'd like to be with. I'm presuming you're referring to Ovi Soko.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I would fit that Love Island profile. It's not. I don't think it's one of my strong points. Is the Love Island situation? Although I'm really happy for him. I'm really happy for him more than anything because I think he's just been genuine. That's the way Ovi is. That's the way Ovi's always been. So I think that's great that the nation's got to know the real Ovi. Obviously, I think it's also great for the sport. He's tried to give a bit of profile to the sport of basketball in this country. So yeah, I mean, all the best to him. I don't know what he's planning to do with the rest of his career. Whether he's going to be changing careers or not, I've no idea. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously a great opportunity for him. And I'm really happy for him.
We've never seen a GB player have a cooking slot on This Morning before.
No, and I don't think we'll see many more having a cooking slot.
And St. John Amici was on Ready Steady Cook once.
Oh, was he?
Yes.
Yeah, that was before our time.
Last few things. I mean, in terms of your future, I mean, you've turned 30 now, so you're an old man officially. How do you have you started to have that conversation with yourself about what you will eventually do when you stop playing?
Yeah, I have started having that conversation with myself, mainly because a lot of people start asking you. When you get to a certain age, people start asking you, like, "Well, what are you going to do when you finish retiring?" And you automatically think, "Well, I hadn't thought about retiring yet." So yeah, but obviously that does make you think about it. I'm not completely sure what I'd like to do. I have said in the past that I don't think I'd see myself as a coach. So I think I'll stand by that. But I would like to be involved in the sport. As I said before, as you said before, I think the knowledge that I've acquired over these years is a good tool to have, and I think it could be very helpful, whether it be for some type of basketball club in the future, whether it be abroad or in the UK or with some type of federation. I'd be more than happy to be on board with something like that. Obviously, no one knows what will happen in the future. No one knows what the situation will be, and time will tell, really. So we'll just have to see what happens.
What would it take for you if the role ever opened up as president of BBF, for argument's sake, the Garbajosa role? What would it take for you to be willing to accept a role like that?
Well, I think there has to be a plan in place, basically. I'm not sure over how many years or what type of plan, but I think at the moment we're just functioning year to year, and I think there needs to be a longer term plan in place in terms of producing national teams and a longer term plan in place for them for the domestic leagues and stuff like that. Whether that's something that the president can create once he's in place, I don't know, but it would definitely something that I'd be interested in doing. But as I said before, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what it is when I do retire. Hopefully, they can invent some type of knee or ankle that will allow you to play for the rest of your life. But I don't see that happening.
and you've still got to play. You've still got to play for London Lions at some point.
Yeah, that's the other question I get, whether I will ever go back to the BBL. Which at the moment, unfortunately, I don't see the league in a position that I would like to join it back. Although I do see it moving in the right direction in the last few years, but I still think it's years behind where it needs to be at the moment, as I think has a huge amount of potential in this country. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'd love to play, as I said before, with the national team. It's always great to play at home, but we'll have to see when that time comes.
Well, we hope to see you in action this weekend against Kosovo. But if not, we wish you all the best for a rapid recovery and finding a team. Yeah. And appreciate your thoughts as always. And thanks for being our guest on the MVP cast, Dan.
All right, thanks for your time, Mark.
That's it for this edition. You can get all the previous editions via our website at mvp247.com, where you'll also get information of how to subscribe and download via your preferred provider. We'll have another edition of the MVP cast very soon, but for now, from me, Mark Woods, it's goodbye.